need to get more of a radio voice. That's what I've noticed.
You don't worry about your voice. Your voice is fine, my friend.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Fab. How are you?
All right. I lost track. I lost what I was going to say. All right. So, big question: does everyone in the organization need sales skills? So, this one comes from you. So, how about you kind of set it up, and we can take it from there.
Sure. Well, what made me think of it is because often when salespeople are selling, the concept of what we show to people is to learn to communicate, learn to ask good questions, to really understand what's going on with their client before they offer a solution. And I've read a lot of books, as you know. And the one
you read.
I do read. I know how to read. I also listen to audiobooks.
Nice.
And no Audible is not sponsoring us. I wish they were. And one thing that one of the books I read a few years ago that I absolutely loved, and I'd never read it because I thought it had a cheesy title and I thought it was a cheesy sales book, but I don't know if it was 3 or 4 years ago. I read How to Win Friends and How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
I don't remember the title well, but it was a great book, and there's some things in there that really marked me. And that book is not so much a sales book as much as how to learn to communicate with people. And that's, if you're a really good salesperson, you're not necessarily, you shouldn't just be pushing a solution or a product. You should be finding out about the other individual's reality, right? And
yes,
the reason that I think everyone in a corporation or in a company needs to have sales skills is because they need to learn to, one, express themselves, communicate, but more importantly, understand the person that they're talking to or trying to convince.
Yeah.
And if, I'll ask you a question, and at the same time, I'll give an example. Mm-hmm. And I have an example too, but I'll ask you, think of the times in your life where you've had an idea, and I know you've had a lot, and you've hit a brick wall internally, and with your boss. And if I ask you now the question, in retrospect, do you think, and think of a specific time, with whoever, you don't have to name the person, but maybe give an example of where you've hit a wall. And I'll ask you the next question. Do you honestly think you hit that wall because your idea was bad, A, the person didn't get it, B, or C, maybe you didn't communicate it well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the communication. I mean, yes and no, right? I think in developing your communication skills, you're also able to validate your ideas a bit better, or at least come up with what's important to the client, like in your case, like in that case, your boss, you know what I mean? Internal client. I think a lot of times, I mean, just personally speaking, because this tends to happen it tended to happen to me when I was a little younger. And you're like, let's do all this social media stuff. It's the new thing. Like back in the day, it was a new thing. Let's do it. And then you just don't really have a firm understanding of what, your manager thinks, cares about. You don't understand her reality. You don't understand a whole bunch of things. And I think by developing questioning skills, and communication skills, I think you're able to get that, right? Because you're able to ask questions and be like, okay, let me get back to you with ROI, cost, whatever they care about, right? I think that comes to play. So, yeah, I mean, your ideas are good. I think it's also a matter, you're right. I mean, it's learning how to sell it, and by asking the relevant / the right questions, so that you can understand what their objections and their pain points and all that are. Yeah, definitely.
Well, and here's the thing, and I was breaking it down for someone, I think it was yesterday, and it's funny because we talked about the subject last week, but I lived the subject yesterday with a client.
Nice.
And the problem was the sales manager is having a hard time communicating with their own salespeople. And
Yeah.
it's a sales skill, right? She didn't have, unfortunately, she's an amazing salesperson. She's a great sales director, but she wasn't applying her sales skills to her salespeople.
Right.
I sort of made her realize that, and she sat there, she said, "You're totally right." And the process is simple, right? If you're facing resistance internally, so you're an accountant, right? Internally,
Yeah.
and you're trying to convince your boss that you're the accountant and you're the controller, and you're trying to convince your boss to buy certain software that's going to help you control the costs and maybe be a little bit more frugal and efficient in these hard COVID times to get the company back on track. And your boss is this like A-type, extrovert who likes to spend and make things go further. But your job is to be, prudent and all that.
Yeah.
So you might be the last person who thinks himself as a salesperson. You're like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm just going to show the best. And here's the problem. I'm going to show the best solution.
Yeah.
But if that accountant really thinks about it, he's going to say, well, I need to understand my boss's reality. He might say, I know him and I know what he's going to say. But again, if it doesn't come out of his mouth and you don't, and you think it really is truly the best solution, you need to make your boss understand why you think it's the best solution. So you may ask questions such as, what if COVID goes on for 6 months? What happens to the company? Oh, well, yeah, we're going to be more in trouble. Okay. And I know I'm the accountant. I know we only have enough funds to last 4 months. So you might ask, well, okay, so you're going to ask, so what happens after 4 months? Well, don't worry, everything will be okay. All right. It's not what I'm asking. Yes, you might be right. Maybe everything will be okay. But what happens after 4 months if we keep going in this direction? So you're using those open-ended questions to get your boss to understand. And your boss at the end might hate you, might say, oh, man, Paul, you're such a drip. You just convinced me that, I hate this, but you're right. We got to do it this way, man. Just go back in your accountant hole and okay, we'll get the software, and leave me alone, but you may have done, and I'm giving an extreme case, obviously, which is fun to do. But, so this accountant really has learned what I consider to be a sales skill, because he's taken, and the true sales skill is not to push the idea. The true sales skill is to make the person understand that this is the best solution for them. Right. And anyone who's selling anything internally who really believes in it, they truly think it's the best solution. I mean, you might have some, a few malevolent, evil people in there that just want to sink the company. But, 99.9% of the time, you're not dealing with psychopaths.
Yeah.
So, and actually a little sidebar here, there was a study in some big psychology magazines showing that a lot of CEOs have psychopathic characteristics. You can ask Jen about it. So back on track, the idea is, if you truly believe in what you're selling, it's not necessarily about presenting it. It's about getting the people prepared to receive your idea. And internally, there's often preconceived notions, and we stick people in, Paul the accountant, he's always so boring, he's a stickler ideas, right? So you want to break these patterns. You want the idea to live on its own. Or, Fab, that sales manager, my God, he's always spending money and, taking his reps out and doing crazy things. And, so, there's these preconceived notions, and often, this very well, those salespeople, they just want to get what they get and they don't care about the company. So you need to acquiesce and have that conversation. And the first thing you need to do is lower resistance, right? And by asking open-ended questions. So I really do think that, if you're a human being living in society, you can benefit from understanding the concept of lowering resistance when you're trying to make a point, of getting the person to hear you, I think it's very applicable to many different fields. I know I might sound like a guru right now, but I've used it myself, and it works a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, and I mean it does, right? You're right. If you work at a company, you need to sell your ideas. Like obviously the salesperson needs to sell the product or the service, but like you're saying, the accountant, the HR specialist, the developer, all of these people, they all have to sell their ideas at some point or another. And I mean, even if it's selling the idea that you need better salary increase, a promotion, right? Like those all come into play as well. So it's not necessarily about, oh, we need a new accounting software. This one's like based from like 1902. It's about like, hey, I've been, and most people come in to interview, not interviews, like promotion or salary negotiations, kind of like, hey, this is what I need. Like, I've been here for 5 years. Like, I need more than the yearly 1% or whatever. And they're not really prepared. And I think, obviously part of it is preparation, obviously, like knowing kind of what you want. But the other part is also, like you said, like asking questions and communicating. And it's like, you're right. People come in with their perceptions of you. Oh, he's the accountant. Like, he's probably going to come with his Excel spreadsheet with to the cent of how much he needs more and blah, blah, blah. And okay, we'll just shoot him down. He always says okay anyway. So, I mean, I think I think your sales skills are important at any level within an organization. But let me ask you this then. So obviously you're a sales consultant, and a big part of your job is coaching and training, right? And so people whose livelihood depends on being consultative and asking questions are not always comfortable with the tactics and the strategies to ask better questions. When I'm a developer, right, my whole experience is, sitting behind a computer and programming. How can I develop better skills? Because my manager is not going to coach me on how to ask for more money, right?
And it's a good point. And what I like to tell people, and we've talked about this before, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert makes no difference in your capacity. And now we'll take it out of the sales world now. We'll do it internally.
Yeah.
Changes nothing in your capacity to find out the person's needs, right? So if you're an introvert, you might be uncomfortable in asking questions. But even if you're an introvert and you're a developer, and as a developer, you're trying to, tell your team lead or your boss that, the direction that we're taking in trying to figure out this code for this software we're trying to develop is totally wrong. And you feel that you might be insulting your boss by telling them this. So for sure, the guy's just going to sit down and say, well, I'm not going to confront him, right? Because he's going to say, look, I don't want to lose my job. Well, not for sure, but let's say he's one of those people because he's introverted. But really, if you tell an introvert, listen, your job in confronting is not to be an ass, but it's to go in there and just say, okay, Mr. Boss, can you let's do a mini role play. You be the boss, okay? And I'll be the developer. So, hey, Fab, can you tell me a little bit what the priorities are with this program we're trying to develop? And can you tell me why we're, make stuff up here, why we're using this specific string of code to develop it?
Well, it's what I figure matches the best with the existing system we have, and we have to deploy it quickly. So yeah, that's why.
Well, you remember last week you said that it would probably take 3 or 4 weeks to develop this, this string or this block that we're trying to do. Can you explain to me why you think it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks?
Well, like according to our, when I sat with the product team, we realized based on team's availability and whatnot, we figured that's the best estimate.
Yeah. And I know you're always, and you're often talking about efficiency, and, I'm on the lead on this product, and, would you be open to another solution if you think we could reduce the time by, 25%?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want you to spend too much time coming up with that, but I think if you have something, we're always open to listen to better ideas.
Well, I think I might already have the idea. So
great.
So look, I'm not talking like a salesperson, but what I did there is I know obviously what your criteria is, but I talked to you to what's important to you, efficiency. So if we have the same goal, if we have the same goal and I make you say that goal, you know, I did it kind of a clunky way there. I wasn't the best, but I still managed to make you say that it was efficiency.
Yeah.
Then you'll get a lot further than if I just came up and said, because in my head, I might be thinking, you know, Fab's an idiot. You know, I'm a much better developer than him, but I'm 5 years younger than him and he knows the boss. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I just want to tell him this is not efficient. We should be doing it a better way. But then if I just come up to you and I say, hey, Fab, you know what? There's a better way. I think the way we're doing it right now is wrong. And you thought of it. You're a human being. You might say, well, you know, you're full of shit, Paul. You know, this is why we do it this way.
Yeah.
But if you go on to Fab's side and you make him realize, you know, what it is that can change and be better, then it'll make a difference. So I think this is applicable in every field. And a salesperson does the same thing. The salesperson sits down with a client who has opening to talk to him, but doesn't do like the worst solution in his company because he's an asshole. He just might not know what the better solution is. So you're going to ask him questions to find out what it is that may be lacking that you can help him with. And then you're going to ask him, if you could fix that, would you like to fix it? And most likely most people will say yes. Yeah. And that's part of, you know, and that the whole thing when you're talking to someone internally is there's probably more resistance. There's probably more confrontation necessary, but you need to lower that resistance first and understand, you know, that person's point of view. Another point might be, you know, Fab wants to, you know, start attacking inside sales. You know, he really thinks that the company is only going to move forward if we do inside sales.
Yeah.
And he's the VP of Eastern Canada. And then Paul, who's the VP of Western Canada, thinks, no, it's not inside sales. It's traditional sales, right? But Fab's trying to convince Paul. So if Fab just calls Paul and says, the reason I think inside sales are better is because yada, 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 yada. You know what? You're an asshole for not agreeing with me. Well, he's not going to get anywhere. You know, the only way Fab's going to get rid of Paul is if he gets him fired. He talks to the president and says, look, you got to fire Paul. He's an asshole, right? But if Fab really needs Paul to be on his side, he's going to have to say, look, tell me why you're convinced that outside sales is better, right?
Yeah.
You know, I want to hear, okay, there's this, there's that. Okay. And then Fab's got to really listen. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. And then Fab's got to ask the questions. He's got to say, listen, can I challenge you on a few things? And Paul's probably say, of course. So what about this and that and that? You know what, Fab, you're right. You got a good point there. And in the end, it might be, I don't want to say compromise, but maybe the better solution will be half inside, half outside. Or, but at least there's a communication there. There's a conversation happening rather than a battle. And if you really take the time to understand and you respect your colleagues and you respect their opinion, I think that those sales skills will help you everywhere. You're not going to do a positioning statement. You're not going to do a positioning statement on your colleague, you know, but you're definitely going to lower resistance, use open-ended questions, be empathetic, take the time to listen, take what's best out of there, give them right to what is best, the good ideas, and then maybe present what could be a better solution. And
and I think you're right. Ultimately, like, we called it sales skills because, like, you train your salespeople to get these skills, but I mean, they are, as you mentioned at the onset, the communication skills. And I think, you know, having been in that situation where, like, I don't understand why we're doing this way, this is stupid, blah, 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 and then not saying anything, and then eventually probably ended up quitting because it got, like, so big in my head as to how stupid all this was. You know, sometimes just sitting down with somebody and trying to understand their point of view, because I like what you said, like, maybe it's not a compromise, but maybe there is another solution. Like, you're thinking inside sales and he's thinking outside sales, but maybe there's something else in between, which is like some inside some, you know. So I'm sitting there like, this is so dumb and blah, blah, blah. But maybe you're sitting down, you like sort of understand their point of view, and you're like, oh, it could also lead to the fact that you better understand why you're doing things, and you better understand why it was done this way and not that way. And I think that just helps you. And I think it's not a matter necessarily of developing sales skills. It's just sit down and understand try to understand, if you don't understand something, if you're frustrated about something, sit down and just try to understand where you're coming from. And maybe a better solution will come up. Maybe you'll just better understand.
And you're right. I mean, what I call it a sales skill because I'm talking mostly to salespeople, but it's really a communication skill. And it's really, and, you know, we've talked about this before, you know, the main reason to buy, you know, your basic reason, the compelling reason to buy something. Well, it's the same thing when you're trying to understand your colleague, what really motivates them, what's driving them to do what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
And if you just say to yourself, oh, he's an idiot, I don't understand him, and you try to convince him otherwise, you're not going to get very far.
Never going to work. Yeah.
You know, exactly. And you're probably going to end up quitting or out of frustration, and vice versa. If the other guy's an idiot for real because he doesn't listen to you and it doesn't respect you, it's not going to help you move forward in any kind of way.
Exactly.
But it's interesting because I'm seeing it more and more because as I help companies, the problems often aren't, the problems are not so much that these people don't know these things, it's learning to apply these skills. It's creating a clear path on how to help the company move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's pretty good.
Awesome. This has been good. Thanks,
I think so too. Thanks, Fab.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.